I advised Mike officially early this year that I intended to announce my resignation in early March this year.
Our first priority is to identify the best person for the job.
I understand the honour, I understand the responsibility, I understand the privilege. I want to also congratulate Andrew and thank him for his mentoring and ultimately his friendship with me. It's been a huge part of my working career and I want to thank him for that.
Welcome back. Gillon McLachlan looking like a 15-year-old there, wasn't he? Don't tell me the CEO job at the AFL doesn't age you. Andrew, welcome to the show tonight. You were very keen at that time, I remember, in grooming and having a successor at the AFL. Personally, I think what the AFL should do is go and get Gillon McLachlan, pay him whatever he wants and keep him there for at least the next couple of years. I'd like to get your thoughts on your successor and who should be his successor. Not necessarily the person, but what type of person needs to find this role.
Well, first of all, I agree with you, Eddie. He's done a superb job, Gill, particularly last year.
Does that make you proud that you got the right
No,
guy?
it does, because, I mean, as I've said to Gillon on occasions, if Gill hadn't have been a very successful appointment, it would have come back to haunt me because, hopefully he was in the succession planning and we did a lot of work with Gill and we mentored him and, his success is a vindication of some good choices and he's done a great job and he's settled into the role beautifully. He's been there 7 years now and his performance through COVID was extraordinary. You know, he worked extraordinarily hard. He led the competition and I was so glad that he was there for that because it was an incredibly arduous task that he was set.
So who comes in? What sort of person? I mean, who are the people around the place? You look at Brendan Gale, for example, who would follow your footsteps, if you like, as an AFL Players Association. You went straight to the AFL. Brendan has gone and done amazing jobs, including, I think we were talking before, you said he was Nostradamus. He came up with a plan and he's followed it through, but you couldn't fault what he's done at Tigerland. And is he the sort of person? What do we need? Do we need a footy person in that position, running footy, or can you get a corporate to come in and maybe surround him with the right AFL commission? Yeah,
look, it's interesting, Eddie, because over time you form views and sometimes you get set in your ways and certainly in my case, I changed my view. I thought at the beginning of my role that the person who was in the role didn't necessarily have to have any football experience or be involved in football, and over a period of time I changed that view and without naming names at the moment, I mean, the person who replaces Gill, if and when he decides to leave, and I hope he doesn't, will have to have some football experience. I think it's essential to have football experience because there's lots of nuances in football. You've got to be empathetic to clubs, you've got to be a good communicator, you've got to be able to understand what football clubs go through, you've got to understand the players' requirements, and you've got to build relationships. And
well, Brendan's done all those things, hasn't he? So the AFLPA took over, I think, from you.
Yes, he did.
And then he's gone to the club and Richmond helped turn him into a powerhouse, to strategy, and admitted these are my strengths and equipped himself with people around. I'm probably curious, is it harder coming from the outside for Brendan, like you did, or being an internal candidate that Gillon did? How much traction, how long does it take you to get some traction in the role? Will that go against him, or you think it's probably a win to come in a bit cleaner?
Look, I don't think it's a negative for him. I mean, and I'm not, there will be a field of names that the AFL Commission will consider. I'm not privy to who they are, but certainly internally, they would certainly be looking at people like Travis Auld, who's been at Gold Coast and at Essendon for a number of years.
He's done a great job.
They'd be looking at Andrew Dillon, who he's probably a dark horse. He's certainly capable. He's been a great executive, but whether he wants to do it. At Clubland, you've got some talent. You've got Xavier Campbell at Essendon. You've got people like Dave Matthews, who's worked at the AFL and is at the GWS Giants. Obviously, Brian Cook, if he wasn't stepping down from Geelong and getting out. And certainly Brendan. I mean, he'd be in the mix because...
When would the AFL, when would be the opportune time to get Brendan and say, OK, in you come and get a look inside here? And we spoke about the Tasmanian issue a couple of weeks ago. We all were involved.
So you think it's important to be inside for a period?
Well, I'd like to see something like, if I was doing it,
makes sense to me.
I'd get Brendan Gale and put him in charge of the Tasmanian and the northern exposure. We're going to talk about Queensland after the break. We'll get to that. But if he's the bloke who can pull that together, then that's going to be the legacy piece for the next 10, 15 years.
Does Gillon
Whoever
have
the
to
CEO
want that,
is,
though? Does Gillon have to want that for that to happen? You know, is it who makes that choice?
Look, ultimately it's a decision for the Commission and the Chairman and the Board who make the appointment, but it's the most important decision that they make. I mean, whatever you choose to say, most companies, the big decision that a board makes will be the CEO, and But certainly the CEO will have some influence. You know, if Gill decides to anoint someone and mentor them and provide a couple of options, as you should do for the board, he'd be derelict in his duty if he didn't do that. And I'm sure he's thinking about who he would like to succeed.
Andrew, you've chaired some of the biggest businesses in the country. What's the difference between football business and everything else?
Irrational passion, Ed. You know, we've seen some of the best business minds join football club boards and they leave their brain in the bin, as the old terminology goes. But look, I think AFL football is served by some wonderful people, you know, at board level and clubs and the commission, at chairs. We've got some of the most talented chairs going around of businesses throughout Australia. But, you know, it is irrational. You know, sometimes you let passion get in the way of
Well, speaking of passion,
objectivity.
let's talk about Jeff Cannon. He's come again. 2 presidencies. You look refreshed. You've got the capability. Is there any chance?
No, certainly not, Ross. I mean, once you're out of football, you're out of football. But I take my hat off to Jeff. I mean, he loves his club. He's had a great success at Hawthorn Football Club and established an incredible culture. But it's amazing how football almost brings you back. It's a magnet. It attracts you. And
How about where your heart lies, the Kangaroos?
no, I'll leave that to my good mate Ben Buckley. He knows what he's up for. And
Ask him if he's going to come back to coach.
no, I'll ask him later.
Yeah, we'll get to that after. But yeah, congratulations to the Brisbane Lions as well on
Yes.
being the AFLW premiers, and congratulations to Brianna Davey and also Kiara Bowers on winning the league best and fairest. So it was just a wonderful night last night. Congratulations to those ladies. And I want to bring something up. An 8-year-old Brianna Davey wrote you a letter.
She did.
When you were the boss of the AFL, and she said to you today, when I'm 8 years old, my teacher set me and my classmates to write a task and a piece, and she wrote this to you, which said about you have wrecked the dreams because girls want to play AFL footy and they have had great ability and should be able to have the right to play AFL. I don't want to turn on the TV and just see the boys, I want to see the girls. So do you remember receiving that letter at the time?
I do remember receiving the letter, and I was sort of surprised it got brought up last night, but in the context of her win, it wasn't surprising. But I remember the letter. I've got a copy of the letter here. I think she's been a bit harsh, Bree. I don't know why I've wrecked their dreams. But, you know, the AFLW competition is a huge success, but it didn't just start. You've got to give credit to Gill for almost fast-tracking the competition. But, you know, all those building blocks for AFLW were well established long before, through David Matthews and through the efforts of all our management team back then. You had to start somewhere, and whether it was through Auskick, whether it was junior development programs, whether it was competitions. But the success has been phenomenal. And I take my hat off to Brianna, and I think she's still a bit harsh about wrecking their dreams. But good on her for writing the letter.
I think the point of that stage was that girls were stopped at 14 playing with the boys.